Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is the Twitch recap from last Sunday's live stream where we were continuing our big Perseus project. We are actually moving into bigger Perseus at this point because I think we can actually also integrate the service module into the craft itself and just make one big spacecraft. Of course, there's a whole lot to test on this front and a whole lot to see if it's going to work or how well it will fail, and all these other things. So we were starting from scratch just to kind of learn from some of the lessons I gathered putting together the original Big Perseus in the manufacture here of Bigger Perseus, just to make sure that we can get some of these silly details ironed out. So we'll basically get the core laid out here, which, as you can see, is going to be basically twice as tall. Um, and how those cargo bays got shifted over like that, I'll never understand. I just watched it here in post, and it did give me a lot of confusion. Although I don't think they actually were. I was just looking at it wrong now that I see it again for the second time. But I will just get things reattached here and basically keep going. Anyway, so we'll clip everything out. This is, of course, fully CLS compliant. We just want to get our adapter tank sized appropriately, although it still looks just a little bit weird. But now we just need to tuck in the cargo bays and the crew quarters as best we can and make sure we have our adapter tank and our core tank sized appropriately. Of course, I did forget something that I wanted to add last time, but didn't quite get around to it, and that is, of course, a KIS container crate that will be accessible both from inside the craft and the cargo bay, which is absolutely essential for carrying parts and supplies and spare things, and also carrying other stuff home as needed. So now that we have that in there, we can shrink the core tank to match the size and then size it down appropriately so that we have a good profile here. We're going to add another adapter tank here to the bottom. This basically is to help act as an insulator because the heat shield will be attached to, well, I mean, there'll be another tank in between it, a shielded one, but this is to help dissipate the heat um, from the heat shield that is conducted. That's the word I was looking for. Through to the main body of the spacecraft. We have lost spacecraft before because the tank behind the heat shield exploded as heat was convected through and caused an overheat on the tank. So just making sure we have a large enough surface area to help dissipate some of that is essential to the success of this project. Of course, we will be testing for it just to make sure that we can get all the figures correct. There'll be many very expensive drop tests from very high orbits, and probably an uncrewed variant that will be launched to orbit the moon and then free return on its way back. Just to verify all these systems work, and as I figured out doing these simulations, it's actually cheaper just to build one and launch it than it is to simulate it and let it fail. So I think from maybe going forward from here on out, that might be our approach. Now, this is the biggest change between Big Perseus and Bigger Perseus, is that we're going to be trying to integrate the drive systems onto the craft itself. They will be recovered with the rest of the spacecraft instead of jettisoning them as we prepare to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. Which is good, which means that we can hopefully use this heat shield twice in the case of Mars. Once on Mars Aero Capture, or at least Aero Capture Assist, because based on our tonnage, I don't think that we'll actually be able to fully capture at Mars unless we start scraping some dirt on the way through. But that will also use very little ablator, and hopefully we can use the heat shield again to capture and return at Earth. Now, all of this will take some testing to do, obviously, and we've got a few things to figure out. But if we want to save these engines, we need to be able to keep them from being burned off during reentry, which means having them retract into these cargo bays. Thank you, Kerbal Robotics, or Infernal Robotics. Wow. Kind of out of it today. Anyway, so we're just trying to get the sizing of these systems complete. We actually have already, well, I can't say we, Wookieed Industries has devised a much better option for this, but I guess we'll get to that in a future episode along these lines. But as far as an initial prototype and a proof of concept, it works relatively well, being able to fold these engines in and out of a cargo bay. Of course, also a very convenient place to attach solar panels or other things that need to be defended from the furies of reentry. And just to make sure we've got solid control, we will add some RCS ports, the most powerful ones we can get our hands on, of course. Make sure everything can be, well, we can dock this thing primarily, also that we can orient ourselves appropriately. Hopefully they will be able to help us maintain orientation during reentry also, which would be nice if we could angle ourselves a little bit to reduce the G loading. But we're about ready to go take our first test run. So we'll start the simulation here in orbit, and I will turn you over to old me live during the broadcast. All right. Decent medium range drop test. So 3 days has probably been excessive. Probably should have been another 0 on there. Open RCS to ARM. Open robotics. Extend. Stage in the engines. Oh, that also armed the parachutes. No big deal. We need to turn these off. Disable RCS port. Okay, good. All of our other ports still fire. Alt F4 to reset the simulation. Yeah, that only worked once. Only the first bottle of beer, and you've already forgotten solar panels. Match half an F for 3+. I haven't even finished the first one. Wookiee likes arms ripping off. So I've heard. I thought it was only when you lose. Alright, well, gimbals are unlocked. That's a good sign. College. No ignition, huh? Pressure. Oh, alright. That was a wasted $1,000,000. So with our hat in our hands, we will retreat back to the VAB where we can correct this very obvious oversight that seems to happen when I do live streams a whole lot. And also take the opportunity to add solar panels that I completely overlooked last time during said live stream. Now, attaching them straight to the sides would be way too convenient because they will clip into the doors. So we're going to have to angle them out probably by many degrees. And also it was suggested that reorienting the engines in this configuration would likely be better. For clearance of the doors, not so much, but for clearance of the heat shield and everything else, yes, it absolutely is. So we're just going to take a quick measurement on our heat shield versus cargo bay door, and then get those lined up as best we can. That looks good. We will replace our thruster and fold everything up and get this thing ready to test once more. Just a few quick small adjustments, especially on thruster and engine placement to make sure door clearances are all set. And we'll go ahead and run our simulation one more time. So back over to old me. All right, where are we? Perfect. All right, so round 2. Let's try this again. Been open. Needed to set up action groups. Should have done that already. Should have also set up better staging so that I don't inadvertently try to arm my parachutes. RCS to arm. Now let's disable these. Good, the rest of the ports are working. Mark, how's it going? Good evening. All right, we're gonna just See, they angled themselves out. That was quite a bounce. Let's turn SAS on. Maybe that will help. Weird reason for locking it. The lunar radiant heat shields also have a big issue with drag. They start decelerating at a ridiculous rate the minute they are jettisoned. Indeed, they do. Okay, well, our inclination is shifting. Which is good. The engines work. They do stuff. That's what we were trying to see. It's kind of a pointless way for us to get rid of our fuel before reentry, but I think first reentry test, I kind of want to come in good and heavy. Now, which tank were we pulling from? The outer tanks are gone, so I guess it was pulling from these. No, not really. Maybe these. No. Interesting. Try to unwarp. Wide orientation, bilateral, bipropellant liquid engines. Wobble. It's the Wobble Cruise setup. I mean, the option we have is having Kerbal go EVA and attach some KIS struts for when it's on mission deployment, and then they can try to remove said struts before re-entry maneuvers, and then replace them again when we get the engines out. Can you hold retro? Let's see what the thruster inputs are doing. They kind of normalize. There's nothing more than 3 or 4 degrees of input on pitch or yaw. So I think they're actually on straight, which is better than I thought. Alright, but yeah, here's the test. Well, one of them's gone. That worked real well. That worked real well. About those KIS struts, I suppose. Oh, Kerbals. Why you so Kerbally? And now we're at least set up for a descent mode. Where are you going, dude? Artificial gravity. Need more of that kind of footage. Well, thanks for coming by, Mark. Much appreciated. Man, all this money is spent for a reentry test that's never going to happen because I keep breaking and or forgetting things. That works real well. 30 seconds of latency. Oh, that's terrible. Try closing it and reopening it again. Yeah, I don't know how eager I am to sit here and hold the H key to do an unbalanced re-entry when I already broke it, but it is nice to know that I cannot physics warp while making a burn with this. That is one point against using this versus the version we built last stream, which really we still need to do an engine test on. Try to remove those octagonal struts between the robotics and the tanks. It's possible to attach the tanks without them. It certainly should be. Do we even have roll control? Nope, not one single thruster that night was a rollin'. Back to VAB. Yeah, these silly oversights are getting horrendously expensive, which is why I said earlier in the episode that I think we'll just be launching prototypes at some point. Maybe we'll do a few more tests, but I think a lot of these problems we could have ironed out on a pad test versus in going straight for the orbital drop test. But that being what I have decided is the most important thing to test, I kind of overlooked the rest of it. We'll also be attaching the engines directly to the head of the piston, which is a much stronger joint than radially, and hopefully that will get rid of our engine wiggles situations. But we have, of course, to test for that, and which also requires retesting for clearances and all these other things. The cap tank, however, may or may not make the cut. We might decide later on a way to integrate that, which would basically be to clip the engine all the way all the way through on the other side. I'm explaining it badly, but anyway, that will come in a future variant. Anyway, so with thrusters for roll control and ullage all fixed, let's get this outside for hopefully a more successful test. Oh, dang it. Yeah, that totally flew over my head. He was quoting HAL 9000. And I really should have gotten that reference. I love that movie. It's been that kind of day. So, let's take this step by step. I didn't recheck the depth on the solar panels, so those are probably going to clip the doors. Badly. Alright. I need to get a sticky note. I don't have any sticky notes. Dang it. Alright. Panel depth needs to be checked. RCS to arm, SAS to arm. Disable RCS port. How's our power draw looking? Oh, we are way charging them bats, yo. Good times. I think we only have actually 2 panels in the sun, so we might be able to go with the smaller solar panels on that. That would work well. Engine clearance looks good. Solar panel clearance does not. Oh, do we have roll control? Now we have roll control. At least we have thrusters that fire when I hit the roll button. I don't know if we have good roll control. But RCS build aid will come in like 10 steps further down the line. We need to see exactly how overburdened our parachutes are going to be. Staging needs to be, where's my pen? Staging. Alright, it's written down. I can forget it kindly. Warp, warp, warp. Here for warp. You got to see your warpy destructions. Alright, ullage motors. Are the ones on the tank firing? They are not. That's the one that's supposed to provide all the ullage. And yet it is providing none ullage. That's interesting. It's very interesting indeed. Alright. Ignition. Hey, look at that! No wobble! Hold retrograde, please. How are our control lock inputs looking? Yeah, walking casually around. Probably indicative of dumb things being dumb. You didn't configure them, did you? I thought I just copied them over from a different one, but I guess not. Let's ruin the robotics. For a much cleaner look, we'll just, you know, be physicsless. Runtime only, like, what was it, about 19 minutes or so? Or 18 and a half minutes on these engines? That's actually not terrible considering how much they displace stuff. Yeah, I know. I wish I could set like 130% so they could like fold over the windows a little bit. You just figured out your 2-year-old computer case has foil to be peeled on the outside. Well, hey, it's like having a new computer case now. I never put orbital period in this, and I really should have. Oh boy, I really wish I could, physics warp. Or just... 2x is okay. 3x is okay-ish. Full physics warp, it's a little rolly boy. But that's fine. We can roll while we burn, but we didn't lose an engine. Pixar didn't happen, human person. Physical warp. And roll control works, because now we're going to start spinning in the other direction. It's not bad, really. Warp of Scorpio. Alright, and our periapsis is way below our simulation time. That's the word I was looking for. So we won't have to buy any more simulation time. We can just drop this into the atmosphere and be good to go. I can't believe it took an hour to get here. I really thought this was going to take 15 minutes and then we'd be doing our first re-entry test. This would be kind of interesting if this works, especially at so grossly overweight. The good news is it'll never have to actually hit an atmosphere with the tonnage that it has now. There had been some ablation. It's one way to quantify it. And wow, it took a lot of DV to slow down from that orbit. But we're coming up on engine shutdown. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shutdown. Yeah, our thrusters do next to nothing. Can't throttle up without the nav ball. Apparently, that's a thing. Alright, one more kick in the... Nope. Okay, 58. I guess that's where we're coming in. There was some lag on that. Alright. Re-entry test is a go. Let's just, balance out some things. Open the pod bay doors. Low tanks, yes. Those are our 3 lowest tanks. Are you empty? Nope. Out. Out. Sehr gut. Out. Out. Ego or ego? Now you're going to let go the egos. But you are go for things on the get it to the dirt test. Awesome. That was dumb. I'm sorry. Many apologies. I could probably put a few of the parachutes on a little bit of a lower ring here. Maybe a ladder. Hold on, it's CLS compliant, so we don't really need to move anybody to anywhere. Although maybe we could balance Kerbals out across the things. Those should be empty. What about you? Out. Out. Although I guess technically that's lower than these tanks, isn't it? That's the main bottom, and that's the two sides. So in. Pulsified, welcome back. You didn't miss anything. You two can go away. Is there any fuel up here we can get rid of? No. Nitrogen tetroxide, which is gone. But still some MMH. Actually, we're going to go ahead and pump some of that back in so that we can use those thrusters for descent. Maybe we can get some kind of half janky descent mode working. God, I can't believe I spent $3 million simulating this thing. For no good reason. Alright, and how much battery do we have? 131,760. So we should be able to make it the how long until our periapsis is 4 hours? Yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and pack everything up now. Need action group for solar panels. That would make things better. We should probably open these pod bay doors. Ignore the clipping, it's not a real thing. I can outdumb that. Have you ever seen a Lego dodo do the Coco? No, I have not. Should I? Yeah, let's fold the engine to cells in. What are plans for 2019? Kiddo number 2, third doggo, 1,000 more episodes. I think I can give you maybe 200 episodes if I work real hard. No, going to school. No plans for a kiddo. We'll see how well that works out. God, no plans for no kiddo number 2. No, and probably no doggo number 3 either. Alright, and time warping around. Technically, if the doors had mid hinges, they could close like French doors. Oh man, that would be really cool. So the clippy stuff is just because the party animations don't work as well as they could. That's my line, and I'm sticking to it. Alright, let's get this into the retrograde. Yeah, because if I let the computer do it from this angle, it's going to go very, very badly. Now, which one has all the Kerbals in it? Because that one should face down. Not that one. That one. That one's going to weigh more. When 101.3 kilopascal atmosphere. One fat boy. That's what we're here to find out, look. Alright, hatch side down. That's what we need to remember. Hatch side down. Ooh, roll control. Fancy, fancy. What is human person posting? I can't check links, I'm busy. Ugly Noctua fan type. They are ugly, but man, they last forever. Unlike Corsair fans. We're not going to talk about that. Alright, we are angled in. Kathunk. Atmo. Arm shoots. Oh, where did my action group for arm shoots go? Come on now. Arm. 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 This is so dumb. Arm. Never take for granted what action groups you have established. Especially if you load from an older version, I guess. I don't know. Alright, that should be all of them. Whew. Your stripes of shiny metal look like ugly plastic. Oh, okay. You're posting pictures of your case. Ozen, welcome. Good to see you. Thank you for coming out, man. Bless the KOS gods. Alright, reentry effects proper. Let's see if we can't angle up just a little bit. Oh, those thrusters give us lots of authority. Watch the G loading. Current vessel mass 86 tons. Can we land 86 tons? Lock that ablator open so we can monitor that. Power steering for the win. Let's try to get through one re-entry test without physics warp, and then we'll see how it works, because it's inevitable that I will get lazy during recording in physics warp. But hands are off the keys. This is all on its own, holding retro, and braking pretty steadily. 58 kilometers altitude, barely a G of deceleration. The crew is residing in very heavy comfort of that we're just going to power through all of the atmosphere. I think, honestly, if we want to do this effectively, we want to angle down and push ourselves deeper into the atmosphere, because we're already on our way back up. 9,100 meters per second. Why is this not blown up yet? I don't understand it either. I really don't. I thought for sure this thing was just a fail cake. Look at ablation rate. Yeah, it's fairly nominal, honestly. It's speed that's hilarious. And at 58, I mean, how many things can you put down to 58 kilometers at orbital velocity that are going to skip back up through the atmosphere and take another orbit? It might have been Wookiee. The lunar ones are pretty stout. And always that orangey color, whereas the low Earth orbit ones are always kind of that more, I don't know, the darker gray, blackish color. And we're on our way back up. 70 kilometers altitude. Still a 7.2 million meter apogee. Great. Yeah, it is, because it's 80-something tons, exactly. It doesn't slow down very well. Yeah, that sounds like an LEO heat shield. Considering we started with like 7,300 ablator. But it looks like we're taking another lap for sure. But okay, that's an hour away. We got 6 hours left on our simulation, so we're just gonna run with it. Here's your physics warp, SimG. Extend engines and atmosphere to increase drag. Luca, not you two. I mean, we're high enough up now. We totally could. That's a terrible idea. We just need to see if it will re-enter the atmosphere successfully. Apollo from FASA had 800 ablator on its lunar rated heat shield. Really? That is very interesting. It might be worth using for the landing. I wonder if they'll get torn off by Aero forces. How's our battery? Getting kinda low. I don't know, this lap is a lot shorter than our left one. Extend right, left, right for yaw control. Out into the chutes they shouldn't. True that. So when the inevitable happens that the parachutes are not nearly enough to slow us down without blowing things up, we'll probably pop the engines out. I should have put reserve panels on here and did not. I just don't feel like going through all of the steps needed to extend parachutes. That's how lazy I've become. Back in the atmosphere. Alright. Lean with it, rock with it. Amount of a blader is not an indicator of LEO lunar rated. Oh. Really? You thought about doing a spaceplane rated for reentries faster than LEO? I've thought about it. There have been experiments to in that vein. It's the procedural wings that are not cooperating. I lost my bourbon again. I also forgot to turn on the light. And here comes the flame effects. Let's come out of physics warp. Let's hold the H key. It will do no good, but it's worth something, I suppose. I should lock this bottom tank. We're not draining all the fuel from it. Oh, I have the heat shield open. I was like, why can't I transfer the fuel? Alright, where are we at with this? Are we coming down for real this time? Nope, we're going to get down to 56 kilometers again, and I guess this time around we'll have to extend the solar panels. Only Aero Jupiter rated heat shield has 120 ablator. Wow. Yeah, I just figured a ablator was, I don't know, one set resource, and that no matter what part it was on, it would ablate at the same rate based on atmospheric density and heat. Although, to be real honest, I have no idea by what metrics those parts are assembled or considered. Yes. Ideally, it will be empty on reentry, but as a stress test, I wanted to try to reenter it full. Because it's going to put a lot more stress on the ablator and on the frame and on all the things and the parachutes. And I'm too lazy to burn off the fuel or dump it. But there will probably be an empty test at some point if it can survive this kind of stress. Then it will probably be okay. Because it's, yeah, it's really cooking. We're still in the descent, but only for about another 15 seconds or so. But our apogee is down to 1.2 million. So hopefully we will actually come home this lap. Ablator ablates differently depending on the heat shield's Mach temp stats. Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. That is very interesting. There's so much about this game I don't know. I need to start diving through code, I suppose. Yeah, there's our deorbit. We're coming home. Hopefully. There's a big mountain range. It's our 54 kilometers altitude and on the descent again. Where are we? Ah. Careening across South America. I mean, that looked like one hell of a mountain range. Dark Helmet, thank you for the follow. Much appreciated. There's some thermodynamic stats for the ablator itself. The only way to check them is inside the RO config of the heat shield. So the center of mass end up looking okay for empty reentry. We're going to have to double check just to make sure. We might end up putting a little bit of a fuel tank inside this one, like allocating some space in this tank for fuel and allocating space down here for life support, or at least maybe water, just to help keep the balance. But all of those things are possibilities. You can't pump lead ballast around, Wook. And maybe we'll increase the top node of this because that seam bothers me for whatever reason. It is going to be a long, long, long re-entry. I don't need to pump lead ballast. Yeah, that's true. I also don't need to haul it around. Just let it be at the bottom and call it gravy. So yeah, this is sure going to be like a half hour of this thing piling through the atmosphere. Aero capture at Mars with this thing might be a pipe dream. Well, it would be capturing at Mars empty. Or mostly empty in theory. That is the plan. Could pump mercury ballast around. True. Also, things we don't need to haul around unless we're carrying a butt ton of thermometers. Why are we carrying 4 tons of thermometers to Venus? Don't ask these questions, son. It's above your pay grade. Oh, really? There were parachutes configured for 30 kilometers still. That's an oversight. Thought we'd capture Mars with the Haffle stage? We might. Nah, this thing does not have a dedicated lift vehicle yet. Aero capture at Mars will work as long as the periapsis is to 125 meters or less. So yeah, we might kick up some dust. So man, I think the heaviest thing we captured at Mars was 80 tons. And it came in at a perigee of about 35 kilometers, which cut the dust about 20 kilometers off the deck. And that was not even the time we almost hit a mountain. You have local control with those so-called astronauts. Why not just stage the shoots? Huh. Yeah, that would have been a good idea. So don't these pack like more than one chute? Deploy. Yeah, spare chute's 5. Deploy chute. Arm parachute. Disarm. Arm. Nope. Okay, fine. Why don't you just go ahead and hold retro, and we'll... Oh, yes. The doors. The engines. Landing gear would not go unappreciated. Huh. That got us down to 10 meters per second. That's well within tolerance. That's only 4 very tangled parachutes. High-speed landing height. I hands completely off the keys. It was doing that all on its own. Bigger diameter heat shield would help. Also having less drum-shaped and more capsule-shaped. Indeed. Oh, wrong button. These engines are incredibly ineffective in the atmosphere anyway. They're doing nothing to slow us down. It does not appear. Oh yeah, they are. It took us down 9 meters per second. I guess the more fuel we get rid of, the more effective the parachutes will be. spare chutes is not the amount of chutes inside the magazine, it's how many can... Oh, really? Okay, so an engineer has to get out, repack the chutes, and that's how many times it can be repacked. Yeah, these parachutes are doing a surprisingly good job with an 80-ton vehicle. Stunning, even. Do we put landing legs on it? I don't think we, strictly speaking, need them, but I guess I want to see if it tips over when it hits the dirt. And now everything's in full deploy and engine's running. Brings us down to 6.1 meters per second. That's not bad. How about with engines off? 7? Really? We get less than a meter per second of DV shift with the engines on? Yeah. How about with thrusters dumping fuel out the back too? Stop hurting those HA-10s with combustion instabilities. Oh, all engines that work for me know they're gonna get tortured. Why does this work? This is really dumb. This really shouldn't work. I feel like this should be against the rules of realism overhaul. I'm confused. Whew. It is, you're just ignoring them. Fair. And yeah, it wouldn't be the first time. It certainly isn't going to be the last. Alright, 400 meters. Add some ASL engines, remove the parachutes, and go for propulsive landing. You just really want to see a bunch of Kerbals die. We've established that, and it's probably a terrible idea. Because I can't guarantee they'll come home with fuel. $200 meters. LR-87. Yes. I'll say that the ELE is not really sea level rated, is it? I mean, I guess it shouldn't be. It was never intended for that. HA-10 with a sawed-off nozzle. Those were banned. There even any high-thrust sea-level engines in this install. There's plenty of high-thrust sea-level engines. They just all run on kerosene. Touchdown. Why does this work? This is so dumb. It didn't tip over or anything. Alright, let's revert to the VAB. So with this first hurdle cleared, we can actually call this a viable idea instead of just a complete waste of time, although I am entirely confused as to why this works at all. We will, of course, require more drop tests that will more accurately simulate the actual conditions under which this thing will be re-entering Earth's atmosphere. Of course, if we can't get it to pass that test, there's no real point in proceeding along to everything else. But so far, this weird little thing has exceeded my expectations, and it's real nice to see something positive coming of it, even if we're not entirely sure why the hell it works. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.